Fred wants this 13-year-old corn whiskey. I've got a couple of bottles of the sample Retain, but this blend of Little Book, each year it's an annual release, so each release is a totally different blend. For the second one, none of these liquids are in it, and for this first one, actually, I used up all of that 13-year-old corn whiskey, so this particular blend will not be able to be created for 13 years.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another brand new episode of Bourbon Pursuit. But first, as usual, we've got some news to run through. We've been talking about it for a while. We've got Bourbon and Beyond coming up. The bands are announced. Robert Plant, Lenny Kravitz, Sheryl Crow, Bourbon Pursuit, Larry Rice from Silver Dollar, Blake from Bourboner, Brian from Sippin' Corn. We're all going to be there. Make sure you go to bourbonandbeyond.com. Go get your tickets, see what packages are still available. They're starting to run out, right? I mean, like tickets are going on sale pretty fast. We're going to be leading two of the workshops there. So make sure you come and you can hang out with us. We're also going to be doing a giveaway here in the upcoming months for not only just GA tickets. We got that giveaway, but we also got tickets for the Mint VIP package. So we'll be doing a giveaway through there as well. You know, we're big timing now. We've got opportunity to be able to do awesome VIP ticket giveaways. So if you want to and get your tickets now before you have a chance, before they run out, go to bourbonpursuit.com. There is a link on our website that's an affiliate link. We get no kickbacks, but just do there. And so they can actually say like, hey, these guys are actually bringing some actual value to this concert series, right? So please go through there and buy your tickets through our affiliate link. Patreon shipments for April are out the door. If you didn't catch it, go to Facebook or YouTube and you can see the drawing, what we were giving away, and who won as well. This past week, we also had our first Hangout with Pursuit for Patreon supporters. It's an opportunity for Patreon supporters to join the Hangout, and we'll talk about some of the information that's happening behind the scenes. You can ask questions that you want to ask, but we also had that opportunity to reveal some news. And if you're paying attention to us on Facebook this week, we also revealed some exciting news that the next private barrel selection that is coming from Bourbon Pursuit is a 6-year green foil, has a family crest on it. Have you guessed it yet? Do you know what it is? It is a Willet Rye barrel. Yes, we were able to secure a 6-year private barrel for Bourbon Pursuit, and that will be coming for only Patreon supporters. So if you want to get in the drawing, make sure you go to patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit, sign up, and that's how you get access to it. You know, this episode, Fred Noah is not new to the show. We've had the pleasure of having him on before, but this is a first time for Freddie. And as usual, you get to hear fantastic stories that are really centered around family as the main focus and the theme of this year's Legend Series that's hosted and emceed by Fred Minnick. As usual, please help support this show. That's how this show continues to go. Go to patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. We've got bottle totes, patches, t-shirts, and of course, awesome barrel picks happening, right? Make sure you're also supporting us by subscribing on Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you get our podcast. Make sure you keep subscribing there. Follow us on social media, see what we're drinking, interact with us, talk to us through there. We always love hearing from our fans. Tag us on Instagram, whatever it is. I swear we're going to like you in return. So make sure you go to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us there. If you want every new episode beamed straight to your inbox and you have an idea of reading the show notes and clicking on them and seeing where to go to bourbonpursuit.com, scroll down a little bit, go to the email button, sign up for our newsletter, and you're going to get those in your inbox every single Thursday morning when the new episodes are cut and published. With that, enjoy this week's episode. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now
at whiskeyambitions.com. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof. And the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Play Whiskey Wednesday, Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you can win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out to the Kentucky Derby Museum for the Legends series. First of all, let me start out. My name is not Fred, but everybody on stage here is named Fred, so I'll be the only one that's not. My name is Pat Armstrong. I'm the president here at Kentucky Derby Museum, and just a couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor for the Legends series, the good folks from Commonwealth Bank and Trust Company. So please give them a round of applause. This is the first year that Commonwealth has sponsored the Legends series, and we're very pleased to have them on board and appreciate you being here this evening. So we are waiting just on a few people, but we'll go ahead and get started. I want to introduce and turn this over to Fred Minnick. Fred is our official bourbon authority here at the Kentucky Derby Museum and has been with us to work on the Legends series for several years. And with that, let me just turn it over to you, Fred, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much. I must apologize. You may hear my voice. We talked a little bit earlier. I've been doing a lot of events throughout the country in the past week, and they've gotten a little bit of the better of me. My voice is it's a little deeper today, but fortunately, I have Beth Burroughs cocktail here, which seems to be a really good remedy for the voice. And who here liked that cocktail? Wasn't that something? Beth Burroughs, raise your hand. Stand up for us, Beth. Stand up. She is talented. It's Jim Beam's brand ambassador and master mixologist. She's pretty awesome. So tonight is about, or actually the Legend series this year is about honoring families. In the past, we've honored individuals. This year, it's about family. And there's not a bigger family in bourbon than Beam. And in fact, in one of my books, I said we probably could have named bourbon Beam and nobody could have blinked an eye about it.
I don't know about that, Fred.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the beams have been, so every major distillery seems to have had a beam in its lifeline. You know, at some point there was a beam. You all are pretty good at procreating. That's for sure.
That's what we do, you know.
Yeah.
We make bourbon. That's about it, you know. You don't see any beams running any banks or nothing.
No.
Yeah, we make bourbon.
But if they did it, they'd be at Commonwealth Bank, right?
Probably.
Right.
Here in Kentucky, for damn sure.
That's
Ain't
right.
Anywhere else.
The first thing I got to do is I got to compliment these boots. I'm just kind of here sipping on a little bit of whiskey, and I see these big beaming red, embossed Jim Beam and the embroidery right there.
Right.
My God, those look awesome. Can you show them up to everybody that can't see them?
Well,
That's a branded boot.
well, we might as well tell the story. Everything we do seems like there's a story behind it. We sponsored a country music band. I know a lot of people are familiar with Montgomery Gentry. Troy and Eddie, they said we wanted Jim Beam boots. So one of our regional vice presidents, Tony Pence, said, if you guys find somebody who'll make Jim Beam boots, we'll get some Jim Beam boots. And they don't tell two country music singers, if you find somebody to make boots, we'll get them made. So they got them made, and I was lucky enough to be at the sizing they did in Nashville at a rehearsal hall. They were rehearsing for a tour, and I happened to be there, and a guy, Bo Riddle, came in, measured our feet, made the boots, and shipped them to us in the mail. We were trying to figure out when it was. It was probably almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It was funny. We didn't know much about boots.
Those boots are 20 years old.
Yeah.
Damn.
We didn't know much about them, and everybody gets snake or ostrich or whatever. We said, well, what should we get them made out of? He said, well, you think about it, a bird, their skin has got oil in it. You get ostrich boots, they'll last a lifetime. You can keep putting soles. If you get a snake or an alligator, they'll crack over time. So we got ostrich. We wanted to get a whole boot made in ostrich. He said, you don't do that. And he said, what do you mean? Is you play poker with a guy with whole ostrich boots, don't call his bluff because he's got too much money. That's the bootlegger telling us that. I mean, the bootmaker. So I said, So he just made the bottom part with ostrich and the top part with leather. So I didn't know anything about cowboy boots. I never had any cowboy boots. And he told me why, because I broke my ankle playing football in high school, and one ankle's bigger than the other. But he knew that. He said, you don't have any boots, do you? I said, no. He said, I know why. One ankle's bigger than the other. So these are made to fit my foot. So it was kind of cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, Eddie Montgomery's are just the same as
Cinderella
mine.
Slippers.
These boots are almost as old as you. What are you, 26 now?
30.
30.
Close.
He's gotten a few years. So you were
They're
10
like
years
Cinderella
old when these.
slippers, though. They only fit him.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
It's funny, the bootmaker put our initials on the little strap where you pull them up. He said, in case we drink too much Jim Beam and throw our boots in a pile, we'll know whose boots are whose.
That's important. Because everywhere I go, I'm wondering,
Right.
like, am I going to come home with my shoes?
Right.
That's
I don't take his shoes off, because if you take his boots off, somebody will steal them, I'm sure.
yeah, absolutely.
But
Especially
Eddie Montgomery's are just the opposite of mine. His are red.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever noticed Eddie wears red boots when he's on stage? His are just like this, but I said, I don't need red boots. I think black boots would be better. So I reversed the colors on his. So mine and his are just the same, but the opposites.
Nice.
But it's, we have a lot of fun with him. He still wears them Jim Beam boots too on stage every night.
nice. And Freddie, thank you so much for joining us. I mean,
Glad to be here.
I was afraid that after your Esquire featured you, that
You're never going to let me live that one down, are you?
Hollywood would be calling you or something. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what's that like, seeing yourself in Esquire?
It's pretty cool. It's just cool, to be able to spend some time with Rob and Bruce, too, I just had recently met Bruce back in, October or something like that?
October, yeah.
Every time I'm around Eddie, he said, I got to introduce you to my son. And he says the same thing to Bruce. And so we finally got together. And that's the longest we've ever spent just kind of hanging out was that. So it was really cool to spend the afternoon with Bruce and Rob.
He's talking about Bruce Russell, Eddie Russell's son from Wild Turkey. And when they got together, me and Eddie, we got to keep them apart. they're too much like their fathers, and we know what we did when we were their age.
Yeah.
We might be in trouble when those two get out on the street. You know, there's a lot of stories about me and Eddie hanging out. I mean, everybody in this bourbon industry, we're buddies. We really are. And when they see like Eddie Russell and myself together, or any of us, we do have a lot of fun hanging out. And when we see Bruce and Freddie, it's just like we're watching the next generation doing the same thing. And it might take it a little another farther than we did, and that could be trouble. You know.
Speaking of generations, you all just filled your 15th millionth barrel.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Monday, yeah.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool, yeah. I mean, we fill them because folks like are here are drinking our stuff. I mean, if we don't have the demand, we don't need to fill barrels, but it's amazing. I mean, the demand curve for bourbon, to kind of give you perspective, when Prohibition ended, the family started making bourbon again. It took them 30 years to fill a million barrels after Prohibition. It took us a little shy of 2 years. Right?
Yeah, no, it was just a little bit. Yeah, it was just shy of
Right
2
at-
years.
Almost 2 years to fill 1 million now. But I mean, back in the old days, they didn't have the equipment we have, and only had one distillery. And there was a lot of things that played into that, but the demand curve for bourbon is way stronger now than it was in the 30s right after Prohibition. And
At the pace we're at now, we'll fill 16 million before next Christmas, so even faster than this one.
Wow. What's it like for you to have that opportunity to fill that barrel with your son?
oh, that made it special for me. I mean, watching Freddie grow up and then coming into the business like he has in the last couple years and working with him, you know, I kind of can see what Booker, you know, when I came into the business, they put me in a bottling line. But then after I started doing the promotional work with him, you know, he got a little more, I guess you'd say, choked up at times when he talked, because I guess you can see the future. And I mean, I see the same thing with Freddie. It's, you know, it's kind of wild. You dream of that kind of stuff, that your son will follow in your footsteps and really take a hold of the bit and go run with it. I mean, I'm sure a lot of fathers wish their sons would do what they wanted them to do. And I mean, he's done exactly what I've asked him. He hadn't been in a lot of trouble. I mean, he hadn't caused me any grief.
Hold on now. Wait, he hasn't gotten in much trouble? Are you sure?
He hasn't caused me a lot of trouble.
Oh, okay.
I ain't gonna say he hadn't been in any trouble, but I
That
mean,
doesn't sound like Freddie or yours, you know. Or,
we had our moments. I mean, me and Booker, we had our moments too, you know. Fathers and sons that are alike clash a lot till you finally get to a point where you can tolerate each other, you know. I'm sure there's a lot of fathers and sons in here that know what I'm talking about, Fred. You probably do too. You're the moderator. You got to stir up shit, I know.
I would never stir up shit.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would.
Freddie, what's your title right now?
My current title is 8th generation distiller. Some people throw the master in there, but I quickly...
Now, when you were 30, what title did they give you, Fred?
30? Bourbon ambassador, maybe? I was bottling line supervisor, and then label room supervisor, then receiving supervisor, and then I think ambassador when they put me on the road. Bourbon ambassador.
Do you think Freddie's gotten a little better treatment than you did when you were coming up the ranks?
All right, next question.
No, I'll just say he had a better agent than I had. You know, Booker, you know, fathers, you know, tend to be hard on their sons, which Dad was no exception, but Freddie, he was in a unique situation. Our CEO of Beam Suntory, Matt Shattup, is a great guy. I mean, super nice guy. And he saw something in Freddie before anybody else at our company did. And we were at an event up at our distillery there one night. And he said, you know, Freddie, following in yours and your father's footsteps is not going to be easy. Would you mind if I was his mentor and brought him into the business? I looked at Matt and I said, Matt, he's yours. And they went off and had a little conversation. And to be honest, the light, I guess, came on. You know, somebody different than your father giving you shit about not getting good grades and not doing what you ought to be doing. I mean, he turned out president's list in college. You know, that was one thing. Booker had one rule for me to finish college before he would let me come to work. Dad went off to UK to play football for Bear Bryant back in 1949. But his social skills were stronger than his scholastic skills, I guess. And it didn't really pan out too well. And so he didn't finish college. And for me, always growing up, if you want to come to work at Jim Beam, you got to finish college. And he held that carrot out there, and after 8 years and a lot of Booker's money, I finally got out of college. And I mean, I had a good ride. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And Dad always told me, college is going to be the most fun time of your life. He was absolutely right. That was one piece of advice he gave me that was dead on for the fact. Now, Freddie did a little better than me. He got out in 6 years and 1 semester.
Yep, you got
So
it.
now I know, now that you tell that story, that's a great segue to Jim Beam Black, because I now know why you all were aging at 8 years for a long time.
That's a good story. That's a good one. I remember that one, Fred.
Tell us a little bit about Beam Black here.
Beam Black, you know, it evolved from a product Booker and them developed back in the 70s called Beam's Black Label. And it was extra age, higher proof than our Jim Beam White Label. Jim Beam White is aged 4 years, bottled at 80 proof. Black has always been extra aged and bottled at a higher proof. This one is 86 proof, and it's a 7-year taste profile. You know, and it's just to give it a little more of the wood from the influence of the white oak barrels and more flavor. That's where the whole thing comes from.
Jim Beam Black's definitely one, if you come to the house, that all of us in the family tend to lean towards more than some of the other products. You know, we all enjoy it. We like them in cocktail. We like it in cocktails, and you know, it's good. I like to call it, you know, kind of like a gateway bourbon. It's kind of one of the things I've said before, because when I started drinking Jim Beam Black with Sprite on ice, and then removed the Sprite, and then that's kind of how I segued into higher strength bourbons. Was Jim
I just
Beam Black.
assumed that you were born and had like bourbon in your bottle.
Maybe I did.
No, Fred. You trying to get me arrested? Child abuse? What's wrong with you?
Wouldn't be the first time.
You're probably right there. We don't go there either.
Now, Freddie, this, you know, maybe actually probably before your time, this great product used to have an 8 on there, and that stood for the age. It was an age-stated 8-year-old, and Jim Beam Black was one of the very first to peel away that age statement, and that was the beginning of heartbreak for me for bourbon, because that was
Wait a minute, Fred. I don't think we were the first one to peel away the age.
Hey,
No, you
but
weren't the first.
Okay.
First, to correct you, before 8 year, it was 101 months.
All right.
Back in the late 70s.
Well, listen, I wasn't here in the late 70s drinking
I wouldn't
bourbon.
either.
I was, you know,
I wouldn't either.
I was, though.
Yeah. That 8-year-old profile was nice, and a lot of people out there still like seeing age statements. Now you're getting a little some influence in Beam. Are you gonna start pushing for some age statements?
So you know, I think on some products it's definitely value added. On others, you know, just because of an age statement, you know, that liquid has to be 8 years old.
Right.
Versus where now, if we blend to a profile, taste profile, we can use some 8, 9, 6, 5-year-old stuff to make that profile that we're looking for. Take some constraints off our warehouse, because, as you know, this bourbon boom is what it is. It's a boom, and no one was really prepared for it. So it just gives us a little more flexibility. Try to hit the same profile. And
Now Booker's, everyone will have like almost an exact like age. It'll be like 6 months. And
That's because the youngest barrel in a batch of bourbon is the age of the entire batch. So we take the age of the youngest barrel in the batch of Booker's, that's the age of the entire batch. So, I mean, for example, if you took 1,000 barrels of 10-year-old, but 1 barrel of 4-year-old in there, all of that whiskey becomes 4 years old.
Yep.
Because the age of that youngest barrel. So that's why age statements tie your hands quite a bit.
do you think they tie your hands on a quality perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because sometimes you can blend with some younger and older and hit a more consistent flavor. Mm-hmm. Because where the barrels store in the rack house, you know, a lot of times when you say it's 8 years old, you got to be older than that. Then you end up getting stuff that's maybe 11, 12, and it'll bring more to it. Then you're trying to get it back to that nice, even, consistent flavor, and it gets a little tougher.
I think, when we talk about this kind of, I think consumers really like seeing things on a label that they can compare to other things. And for a long time, we had that with Jim Beam Black.
Right,
And
we always did. We always had age statements until this demand curve, it just went off the roof. I mean, if we'd have kept the age statement on black, you wouldn't be able to find it because it would just been hard for us to keep aging to that period, that long a time to do it worldwide. We went to a 6-year-old overseas before we changed it here in the States.
Right.
And, it was just to keep it on the shelf. And then it got to where we didn't do something worldwide. It's just tough. I mean, the demand curve is crazy. And we haven't begun to hit some markets worldwide that are out there for us. And it's just crazy. I mean, everybody wants bourbon.
If you all haven't hit them, being the largest, then watch out, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
That's exactly right.
you start looking at, say, a Knob Creek, you can't get Knob. You can get it anywhere in the United States. You get outside the United States, there's very few markets that you can get a bottle of Knob Creek. Now, you can go online and buy it from liquor stores and pay the tariff and pay the... I saw some bottles in Australia that I had signed in Chicago that were being presented as gifts. And I said, what'd you pay for that? 150 Australian dollars for a bottle of Knob Creek when it was $19.99 in Chicago.
So you heard it here, folks. Heard it here first. You can actually buy a bottle of Basil Hayden, have these guys sign it, and then go to Australia and profit fourfold.
Oh, hell yeah.
that's-
Absolute. That secondary market is crazy. I mean, Freddie talked about the 101 month Beam Black.
Yep.
You can find bottles, where is it, Italy?
Italy and France, I believe, is the two I've gotten.
We've gotten some bottles. We've bought bottles of our stuff that have gone all the way to Italy and France and come back at way more than what we sold far back.
That's right.
But after he tasted, I was actually presented a couple bottles a few years ago up in northern Kentucky, and I let Freddie taste them. And we're going to try to match that taste again.
Oh, nice.
Because it's...
So are you planning
we're working on it.
Another a Beam Black product that's that way?
It could be Beam Purple. We don't care what the color is.
Yeah.
But the taste,
Yeah.
when you taste it, it's one of them things, Fred. Sometime when you're out of the house, I'll let you taste some.
Along with that 13-year-old corn whiskey, that's still...
Yeah, you still owe me some corn whiskey.
But I mean, it is amazing. I'd forgotten how good it was, and I used to steal that from my father. People, I know everybody in this room has stolen a bottle from
You
their
didn't
parents.
steal it, you borrowed it.
Well, whatever. I never
puts
paid
you
it
in it
back.
afterward.
If you don't pay it back, it's stealing. But anyway, and I always loved that stuff, and I'd kind of forgotten that taste. And then the people up in this guy in northern Kentucky gave me actually 2 bottles with a brass door knocker. It was a value-added pack that we sold years and years ago, back in the 70s. Now, what the significance of a brass door knocker was, I don't know. But the price tag was still on at $19.95, right?
Yep.
$19.95 for 2 bottles of bourbon and a brass door knocker. And I said, shit, really? That's a hell of a vat, a brass door knocker. But the liquor's what I wanted, and I gave the guy a barrel head for his bar, and he gave me 2 bottles of some good liquor. When I opened them up and tasted it, I said, wow.
Before we get to the next tasting, you all brought up something very interesting, the secondary market.
Yep.
I've interviewed some other master distillers recently that told me that they're looking at it, and they're using some executives who are using the secondary market as a way to price new products.
No, we don't do that. No. No, we don't look at that.
How do you do that? And do you have people in the Facebook groups that kind of like assess pricing or anything like that?
When we look at pricing, we just look at our products. For example, where do you want to play?
Right.
Within the
shelf.
structure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you price, you want to be in this segment, you have to have your price in that range. Mm-hmm. And it's the perception is crazy sometimes, because you look at what people pay for some products, and then you play here, and then when you taste something that's real expensive, and you taste what we do for maybe a third of that, you go, wow, we've kind of given our stuff away. But we kind of figure when we do a product, for example, Freddie's little book, I mean, it was something totally different, and it was very limited. And that was a big discussion on where do you price it? It's his very first product. Should you price it real cheap and give it away just so you get his name out there? Or do you put it where the value is, about where it should be, and let the chips fall where they may? Well, we said, let's put it right here and see what happens. And it was a huge success, and because it was limited, and it is a very limited thing. We'll get to what it's about later, but that's the thing. That's the latest product that I know of that we do, because when you try to take a little price, and bring price up to where it should be, then all of a sudden people start writing bad shit and saying you're stupid, and your
That did happen
executives.
to you with the price increase for bookers.
Right, exactly. Called our executives idiots and everything else, but we've been giving bookers away for years, and then all of a sudden we try to take a little price on it, get it close to where it should be priced, and everybody threw a fit, So
I'll give.
it made us real gun shy on pricing products.
I'll give the audience a little bit of a background on that. Like bookers for a long time was $49,
$50,
$49.99,
yeah.
something like that. And then it came out that bookers would be $100. Is that right? It was that you all would do.
Yep.
It's basically doubling the price. And then you got the backlash, and then you changed the pricing back.
Backed it off to $75.
Yeah, so and then that was like a matter of 3 weeks, right? Like 3
that
weeks.
I don't even know if it was that long.
I don't think it lasted
Was it
3
that
days.
long?
It didn't seem like. When they called our executives idiots, they we better do something. Then you do look like an idiot when you do that, I think, but whatever.
So and look, bourbon has gotten to the point where it's like the New England Patriots have conspiracy theories all around them. Sports, politics, bourbon's at that point where it's gotten conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah.
One of the grand conspiracy theories is that Beam did that on purpose to get rid of excess stock.
No.
We had excess stock, we'd have kept it at $50.
Exactly.
That was the thing, the bookers, we lay down so much a year, and the demand curve on bookers used to be pretty slow. I mean, bookers is bottled uncut, unfiltered, straight from the barrel. And it takes a real bourbon lover to really appreciate it, and that's who usually buys it. And all of a sudden, it was a pretty slow sell, and Dad could never figure out why Knob Creek went like this and Booker's was like this. He accused me of not trying to sell his bourbon when I went on the road. I said, Pop, it's not that. Yeah, it is. You're trying to sell the Knob Creek because that's what you drink. You don't drink that much Booker's. But I mean, once people now have gotten educated and they realize that you don't have to drink Booker's at barrel strength. Add a little water, put it over the ice. Now all of a sudden the demand curve on Booker's is climbing, and all of a sudden, economics comes into play. I was in college for 8 years, and that supply and demand, that really does work. You kind of figure out where the equilibrium price. See, I did learn some shit. If demand's here and supply's here, you start looking at. And we got folks that.
Well, to add to that too, before Booker's was 3-4 batches a year,
right?
And then during this whole pricing scenario, I was working in bottling. We were bottling 6 batches per year. So it's almost the exact opposite. We increased our case volume and then wanted to take price. And now we're back down to 4 batches a year currently. So
I wish we could say, that's the thing about bourbon. You make it today and you sell it, for Jim Beam White 4 years from now. Jim Beam Black 6 to 8 years from now. Booker's 6 to 9 years from now. Knob Creek 9 years from now. I can't tell you what I did 8 days ago. But to tell you what I'm going to be doing, I hope I'm still alive 9 years from now. We turn 61.
Oh, yeah, don't say that. Don't say that. You got a long time. You got a long time.
You never know. I might walk out and get run over by one of those dump trucks that's all in that dirt. I don't know. But that's the thing. You're looking at a crystal ball and you project, what Freddie's making today in the distillery. You're thinking about what's going to be hot 6 years from now, 7 years from now, 8 years from now. So it makes, you never hit a forecast. I don't give a damn what it is. One thing it's always going to be wrong.
I want to get the Basil Hayden in everyone's hand right now. This is named after the gentleman who brought Catholic immigrants into Kentucky in
Correct.
in the late 1700s. And he now has 2 bourbons named after him in your portfolio.
Yep.
Basil Hayden and Old Grandad.
Correct.
So, and this is, you talked about kind of like a starter bourbon earlier.
Yep.
This is one of the top starter bourbons that I have found when I'm working with new consumers.
You know, when Granddaddy created this small batch collection, he kind of hit every little spot along the way. You know, with Basil Hayden, like you're saying, it's a good starter of that collection, and then also with Knob Creek, it's a lot bolder. It's bigger in flavor, and then you have Baker's, and then of course you get to Booker's, and that's when Granddaddy told him only men drank Booker's back when he was drinking 100 proof Knob
Boy,
Creek.
he'd get run out of town now on that one.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I know Peggy knows Stevens. She drinks Booker's.
Yeah.
My wife drinks Booker's. Women love Booker's.
Exactly.
But you got to remember, when Dad released Booker's at an event like this, you would watch the women slide their glasses to the male who brought them to the event. They weren't drinking it. You know, they would be giving it to whoever brought them. But now we have as many bachelorette parties come through the distillery as we do bachelor parties. The girls are drinking bourbon now.
Are you allowing strippers in these parties?
No, they come through with the bourbon
Oh,
trail.
okay, all right. Well,
You know what I'm talking about? They come through.
I'm thinking you got like a special.
You know what the bourbon
theme,
trail is?
you
Fred
know.
shit. That,
Freddie's coming back there in a cop uniform.
yeah, not yet. It ain't got that tough. We ain't got to do that to draw people in. But
Maybe you call in Kid Rock. He comes in and does something.
he'd come in. I'm good.
Yeah.
He likes hanging out down here. It's good. He's a good supporter of the brands.
So you kind of mentioned that you all do observe some of the commentary on the social media and elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
Does that hurt when you see it?
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes when you some of the pot shots people take at you, it's kind
Some of them are funny. You know, to me, I look at it as a learning experience. You know, I'm always looking.
He's on it all the time.
I'm always
I quit
on there looking at
shit
stuff
up.
that everybody writes. It's more just learning and how do we adjust, or is there things we can come up with from what people are saying? But then there's always the people that say you know, my favorite one was when Little Book came out, and I was reading on a review somebody had wrote, and then the comments underneath of it was, "I'm not buying that. They've already got enough money." Those are my favorite because it's just funny to look at them and laugh.
You know, when Little Book came out, there were all of these. There were a lot of reviews that were really, really negative.
Yeah,
they were very bad. And then you started seeing the, I guess, people who review whiskey professionally start writing about it, and that's when I think you started seeing the swing. And by the way, my review did not come from one of your samples. It came from a store-bought product.
Right.
And I rated it, I think, a 91 for Whiskey Advocate. Mark Gillespie with Whiskey Cast rated it in the 90s as well. And so when you started seeing that, I think you could see like an appreciation.
I think part of it too was people were kind of uneducated on what blended whiskey was or what the blended whiskey I was creating was. And it was just, you know, people kind of basing their assumptions off of previous blended whiskey. I mean, I just wonder how many people actually tasted it before they wrote those comments, you know.
Well, again, with Beam and the social media circles, it ain't pretty.
Yeah.
It ain't pretty. And that starts from a few years ago when Suntory came in and worked with you or acquired you, and it's now Beam Suntory.
Correct.
But that's when I started seeing kind of like a shift in, you know, Beam appreciation, if you will.
Yep.
But on the personal level, you know, Fred Noe is one of the most underrated people I've ever seen in the industry. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people in the business. What he did in the 90s and early 2000s to help open doors for bourbon goes completely unnoticed. So
I agree with you. I think he gives a lot of credit to Granddaddy and the small batch collection, but it was him, you know, getting out there and selling it, you know, after Granddaddy kind of slowed down, that, in my opinion, I've never really said this to him either, but in my opinion, it was him that really got out there and started to push those products.
That's just that's what we had to do. I mean, we all did it. I guess I got my dad pushed me a little bit, but with Jimmy Russell, Jimmy and me were on the road quite a bit together. And when Dad passed away, Jimmy kind of became my other father. I called him my dad on the road, and we talked about that a lot. That we got to get out here and educate people on what bourbon's about, because people were so ignorant outside of Kentucky.
We're smart here?
On bourbon.
Oh, bourbon.
I mean, really, you get questions, you go, really? I'd look at Jimmy sometimes. We'd be on panels like this together. First, it freaked people out that competitors would hang out like we did and do things like this on the road. And then when they saw we really were legitimate guys and not marketing people that like Bartles and James, we were really guys that made the whiskey. I mean, we knew the shit. We could answer the question as technical as you wanted to or as simple as you wanted to. And we were down there. If we'd answer any question, we'd sign bottles, we'd take pictures. We didn't care. And it was just about educating consumers. And it kind of took a hold at the time, but it's, and the thing we were doing, we were setting up, everybody in the industry. Because as all the ships rise with the rising tides. Can't just be Beam goes good. All bourbon's got to go good for everybody to go up with it when it's working. So
sure.
That's the main thing. Main thing I want to do is set it up for the future. I mean, our family's been doing this since 1795. Old Jacob Beam started over in Washington County, making maybe a barrel a day if he was lucky. Now we're making, 1 million barrels every 2 years. But it's just from sticking with it, and pass it on from father to son. And Uncle Jerry, he came along. He didn't have any kids, so he had to look to his sister's family. And that's why the last name went from Beam to No. Because, Jerry Beam, who lived here in Louisville, didn't have any kids, but he picked his nephew, Booker, pulled him out of Springfield, got him over at the plant, and then that's when it kicked off. And I'm trying to set it up for Freddie. I'm sure he's going to do the same thing. He's got one child and another one coming. That'll be the future, and that's the thing.
Due September 26th, everybody.
Same day as Fred's wife, so I'll do one hell of a party on September 27th.
Yeah, we're expecting on September 26th, too.
That's going to be interesting.
Freddie
Especially
and I
if they're
might be
a
drinking
boy
some
and a
bourbon.
girl. Man, put those two gene pools together. There could be trouble. Fred and Fred.
Are you trying to betroth our children?
No, y'all, shit. I'll just sit back and watch you two keep them apart.
So, Freddie, when you see this playing out in the world we live in today with social media, whether it's Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and someone, for lack of a better term, talks shit on you or your dad or your family, I mean, do you just want to fire back?
I used to. I don't anymore.
That's why I stay away from it.
My wife has grabbed my phone out of my hand a couple of times, I would say, and stopped me. But, now to me, it's kind of like motivation. Beam is the world's #1 selling bourbon, and we have a very large portfolio. But, I think, products like Little Book and Booker's and Knob Creek show that just because you're #1 doesn't mean that what you do isn't a craft. And that just motivates me to continue to come up with expressions that showcase that.
Everybody's making bourbon. It's a craft, whether you got a little still or a big still. It's still the same deal. You got to get the mash bill right. You got to get everything right. It's got to come together just perfect. Or you don't have anything coming out the other end that's worth a damn. Age it. You got to sit still, be patient. I mean, it's just it's a craft no matter how big your still is or how big your business is. It's just part of it. And I keep saying, a lot of these craft guys, if their family sticks with it for 8 generations and 225 years, then they may be as big as we are. Who knows?
Wow.
Jacob Beam was a craft distiller in 1795.
He was, and he got his capital from his wife.
All right.
That's right.
Nothing wrong with that.
The family.
That's a good deal if you can get it.
So,
I'm not gonna grow. I mean, I take
so
it.
you encourage marrying up then? That's
Hell yeah.
That's the important thing here.
Hell yeah, that's smart. I ain't gonna use Booker's old express. He had some song that he used to sing, make the ugly woman your wife, be happy the rest of your life. I'd say, is that what you did? He said, no, sir, I didn't do that, son. I go, you trying to tell me to do that? No, I'm not telling you to do that. It's just no song that was out when they was running around Jane Todd Inn over in Lebanon or some shit. I don't know. I said, Dad, give me shit for all the stuff I did. And I've heard stories about him since he passed away. He was wilder than I ever thought about being.
Since we're talking about Booker, let's hear about some of those wild stories.
Oh, Dad, hell, he was a interesting fella. I mean, people who knew him really well knew him. If you just met him, you'd think he was just a big, cuddly teddy bear. But if he really knew you and liked you, he'd give you shit in a heartbeat. I could set him off. I could look at him and tell if he was pissed off. But I saw it all my life, you know. I mean, I was the only child, so it was my mother, my dad, and me, and when things came up at the supper table, I knew those two had already talked, and I learned real young, don't deny it. Lying, he beat my ass more for lying than if I did it. I was going to say, yes, sir, I did it. And then as I got older, you don't mean it. When I say, yes, sir, what do you mean? He said, why don't you want to argue about this? I said, well, it ain't going to do me no good. You're going to win. So why even argue? But that was just Booker. I mean, that's the way he was. And some of the stories on him when he stood up for, you know, a little guy a lot. He got in a lot of fist fights over stuff. He had friends and family that liked to drink a lot and get drunked up, and people want to whip their ass, and he'd step in, no, you're not going to do that. You know, all these stories. They talked about him at the fishing game club over in New Haven. Some guy was being a total asshole and giving everybody shit. And Dad grabbed him in a headlock and said, somebody throw out a quarter, I'll pinch his fucking head off. They said, a lot of quarters hit the floor. This is, you know, it's funny. You don't hear these stories when you're young and your father's kicking your ass for doing stupid shit. But after he dies, you know, I'll tell you a story on your dad. That's why you tell me this 10 years ago when he was giving me shit for being an asshole. But that's...
Great dancer.
Great dancer. Yeah, you're right, Margaret. Dad, all the women loved to dance with Booker. He was pretty fleet on his feet. That's probably why Mom married him. I don't know.
She said that. That's what she used to tell me.
Now, Freddie
always
could
told
take
me
care
how-
of Mom when she got up in age, yeah.
She always said, I married your grandfather for his dancing. That's what she always said.
It wasn't because he was a nice dude or anything.
Now, Freddie, you spent a lot of time with your grandpa fishing
Yeah,
and such.
definitely.
Tell us, give us a story about what it was like growing up with Booker Noah, your grandpa.
For him,
Yeah.
he had it made in the shade. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger, I didn't really think of it this way, but, you know, now that I'm older and just kind of reflect on our times together, he always tried to turn everything into a lesson. And about 90% of the time, he'd get pissed off at me, but he definitely didn't show it the way he did to everybody else. But he would always try to show me a lesson, and if I didn't get it or didn't care, he'd get mad, but not. And I didn't really understand why he was getting mad, but now looking back, I do. I remember for one of my birthdays, it was probably about a month and a half before my birthday, he had gotten this old Jim Beam truck that, I don't know, that old truck that's in the house.
Oh, it was a decanter.
Yeah, a decanter. No, it wasn't. It's not a decanter.
The blue one?
No, it's the black one. That's
Okay.
Old Jim Beam. It's like a 1930s truck. It's painted up with Jim Beam, and looks like cases in the back.
Right.
And
Somebody sent it to him. Yeah, you're right.
And he laid it down on the floor, and he laid a three $100 bills beside it. And he goes, "Your birthday's coming up. If I let you pick which one of these you want, which one do you want?" And I thought he was going to give it to me then, and then even if he wasn't, I probably still would have done it. I said, "Well, I've been wanting a new video game. I'm going to take the $300. God damn it.
Wrong answer.
He'd get mad. He'd get so mad.
He thought he knew him real good. I mean, every time I get on Freddie, we live next door. See, I lived in one house, and Mom and Dad lived next door in the Jim Beam's house. And when I'd get on him about something he did, you know, they should have been on him about, he'd scamper around the fence and go over to Granddaddy. I'd get a phone call. I think, what are you bothering that boy for? He's a good boy. I said, I ain't doing nothing you didn't do to me. Wait a minute now. I might not have done everything just right raising you. That boy don't need to be. I talked about sending him. I went to military school. You know, back in the 70s, knuckleheads got threatened with military school. They sent my ass to military school. So I talked about sending him. Oh, shit. You would have thought I was going to I was the meanest asshole in the world. I can't believe you want to send that boy off to military school. God damn, boy, what are you going to do? I said, you did it to me. Well, I might not have done everything just right sending you away. I put the pamphlet out on the counter for him to see it. He went over next door, I'm sure, and Granddad said, he ain't going to send you to military school. Don't worry about it. But that was just, it's amazing how a hard-ass father turns into a soft grandfather.
That reigns true still today.
Correct. He's got a little 9-year-old daughter.
I think he'd run out in the middle of the street if she said, Papa, can we go out and play in the middle of 3rd Street?
Hell yeah.
They'd be standing out there in the middle of the damn street.
If Miss Braley wants to go out there and play in 3rd Street, we go out in 3rd Street. Don't you worry about that. I'll take care of Miss Braley. If she needs anything, she just come see Papa. Well, Papa can make shit happen.
She hadn't fully figured it out yet, so once she does.
Once she does, it's going to be bad news.
His wallet will probably be in big trouble.
So he's wrapped
be no
around her
worse than-
finger.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah, little girl.
Coloring, Battleship. There around Christmas time, I think they played Battleship about 3 times a day.
I'd play with her all night if she wanted to. Well, the
What-
same way with him. I mean, he'd book her anything he wanted to do. It was in. I mean, it didn't matter. He
There's
put a
some
basketball
videos-
goal in the garage for him.
There's some nice videos of you and your grandfather on YouTube going fishing.
Oh, yeah.
And doing some cool stuff. You had long golden.
I know it.
blonde
Craig
hair
was,
back
Craig
then.
was making fun of me earlier. He's like, we need to dye your hair back like it was when you were younger.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a
It was
golden.
white. It was almost white.
it was
really
crazy
blonde.
white.
It was really blonde, curly.
Well, next up we have Knob Creek, and this is one of my personal go-tos at home. A few years ago, it won world's best bourbon at San Francisco World Spirits Competition, where I'm a judge, and when we learned that it was Knob Creek, we were all because it beat Pappy, it beat all the Buffalo Trace products and everything. Our jaws just kind of dropped. We were all kind of shocked. It's a blind competition, so we don't know what we're tasting. So, do you know, was that like a special bottle, or was this do you recollect, was that a normal bottle?
If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon.
And when we learned that it was Knob Creek, we were all, because it beat Pappy, it beat all the Buffalo Trace products and everything. Our jaws just kind of dropped. We were all kind of shocked. It's a blind competition, so we don't know what we're tasting. So, do you know, was that like a special bottle, or was this do you recollect, was that a normal bottle that they just said?
Bottle right pulled off right out of the case. We send them. We don't load a deck or anything because you never know. It's a blind deal, so you just send out. Literally, the local sales team pulls something from a distributor and gives it to them. It's not like we got this competition coming up. Do something out of the ordinary because it's not fair then. But we just send it out there and whatever happens, happens. And hopefully it does well.
And this used to have a 9-year-old age statement.
Correct.
It no longer has an age statement.
That's correct. This is
same
Knob
deal.
Creek Rye.
What's that?
This is Knob Creek Rye.
Is this the rye? Is this the bourbon?
This is the rye.
It's the rye.
Yep.
Same way on our Knob Creek, same deal as black. The demand curve, it was growing. We were banking on 15%.
It's definitely rye after tasting
15% growth.
I was wondering.
I can't see I can't see from here, so
Wonder why.
Maybe we need to pull your glass away.
I need new glasses.
Too many of best cocktails.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, same deal on Knob Creek on the bourbon. The age statement came off to keep it on the shelf.
Now, rye, let's talk about rye for a second. You guys used to just distill rye like one day a year and then like once a month. Now there's so much demand for rye, you're having to...
About twice a month. We do every other Thursday.
That's fantastic. Now, in the Booker's rye was, hugely popular, critically acclaimed and all that. And we don't know what it is because, there's not any more of it. That's like gone, and there was not like a repeat of that production.
It's not a repeat of that production back in those days.
Yeah.
That was an experiment of Dad's,
Did you know what the experiment was?
Oh yeah.
So
You talk to him if you want to remake it.
So are you all remaking Booker's rye?
We're not remaking Booker's Rye.
Might be Freddie's rye.
So are you going to make a Freddie's rye?
Can't be Booker's if Booker ain't here.
We do a lot of, we did 3 experimental mash bills last year, on pace for 4 this year. So we're always tinkering, and I did have that recipe from Granddaddy. I'm not going to say we haven't tried it or have.
What are the age on the stocks that you have for this?
You're always
alleged rye?
fishing, Fred.
For what?
You fish. He is a fisherman. I know he does, y'all don't think he is, but we had a fishing. We had our fishing outing down at the plant a couple years ago at Bourbon Fair. We had a spot for everybody to fish, but our good friend Mr. Minnick, he takes off and goes to the other side of the lake, comes back with the biggest bass, and our biggest whole sack full of fish. And I said, God damn, you are a fisherman, aren't you? I thought he was bullshitting me when he said he was a fisherman,
He earned it, though. He had thistle cuts all over his legs. He was sweating his ass off.
We had a nice spot all mowed off, and cocktails being served. And Fred goes to the other side of the lake. The shittiest spot you can go. He came back with the biggest fish. So,
it was great. I think it was a 4 or 5 pounder.
Yeah, I think it was 5 pounds.
Yeah, we were laughing.
5 pounds.
We were laughing when he saw him walking to all them sawbriars and all that shit.
I thought you guys were going to leave me.
We almost had given the award away, and I said, wait a minute. It looks like Fred's got a pretty big fish coming up here.
Yeah, we had a deal where he got the biggest fish, got an award.
Now, I'm not going to let you distract me from the fact that I had my target set on this rye that Fred has got
You're not
going.
going to get shit out of him. He's tighter-lipped. You got me in trouble last year, Fred.
Now, you volunteered Little Book last year.
I know.
You volunteered it.
That's why he doesn't tell me any information on Little Book anymore. At this
He
same
only gets
event
the
last
taste.
year, I let the cat out of the bag that Freddie was releasing his first product and gave the name Little Book. And our good friend got it out there and
I don't know. I think it was somebody in the crowd. Somebody wrote it on Reddit, actually. That's where it come out.
Well,
that's how I found out that he didn't tell me that.
It came out in here. I don't know where it happened.
One of our supervisor's boyfriend's brothers sent a screenshot to the supervisor in the distillery, and she was like, "What happened? What's this?" And I was like, "How the hell did you find that?" Because we kept it pretty. There was a lot of people in the company even that whenever the release came out, or the statement that we were releasing it came out, they were like, "How the hell did y'all keep this so secretive?" And I'm like, "That's my style."
didn't tell my dad. I can't say that.
That's why he's now on the Little Book tasting panel.
Come on now. You
I let him
promoted
taste,
your
but he
dad
doesn't get to
from
know
the
the.
I don't get to
tasting?
know the components.
You don't get to know
I
the
don't get
components.
Shit. That's
We'll give him the proof, and that's it. Proof in a glass. That's
You
all
don't
he
trust
gets.
me anymore, Fred. See what happened?
That's hard.
You got me. It's your fault.
Yeah,
you pulled
well.
it out of me. You're the fisherman. Hooked me.
Well, it's exciting to hear you're playing with some rye. What else are you experimenting with?
Can't let that out yet.
All right. Well, I'm not going to give up.
He never gives up.
I'll give you a teaser. We're using different grains.
Well, you've had some releases in the past, like triticale and rice and various.
A couple of them aren't even in that.
Okay. So by different grains, like are we thinking buckwheat, different types of rye?
You got your nibble.
Different.
You got your nibble.
Malted.
You got your nibble.
will they be different brands? Will they be different brands, or will they?
We have no clue at all on that. We just wanted to distill some experimental stuff, and it's in the warehouse. We tasted some last week.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Did they taste different than other bourbons?
Some of them aren't bourbons.
Okay, so we got some kind of clarification there.
See? You're not going to get much deeper than that.
We're playing around with a lot of stuff. I mean, it's.
Now, in Little Book, and we'll taste that here in a second, but one of the things you had in there was a really well-aged corn whiskey.
That's correct.
And you could just taste that. It was gorgeous. Why don't we appreciate corn whiskey more? Because it's like, no matter where it's made, I love the flavor profile of corn whiskey. It seems like we have bastardized the category that could really be celebrated.
That's a good question.
I don't know. Maybe I think corn people who look at corn whiskey think it was maybe cheap. Because you look at what a lot of corn whiskey was aged, 90 days, 60 days,
Yeah.
120 days, and sold clear. And it was relatively inexpensive. I don't know. I mean, good corn whiskey, I think, is tasty. And when you get a little age on it, it can be good.
And you had 13 years on
right,
your
13
corn
years.
whiskey. So, I mean, you just have that sitting around in the warehouse?
You know, it's funny.
Right.
I was actually in a meeting today, so we have updated our operating system from that time frame where that corn whiskey kind of slipped through. People didn't really believe me, but honestly, that corn whiskey kind of just slipped through our system and the way we operated. So
We operated by a ledger and done by hand.
Yeah.
I mean, and the warehouse superintendent physically kept track of our barrels until 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
4 years ago. Well, no. Yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah.
When Ronnie Land retired, he had a big ledger and he knew where every barrel of every product was by hand. It was not on a computer. We were
This was
pretty
5 years
archaic.
ago. 5 years ago?
5 or 6 years ago.
Wow.
I think it was a little. It might have been. So we got
No,
even from that
it's
point,
like-
the first computer system we had.
It was.
You could still manipulate it and
was
do
terrible.
what you want and hide it. But now there's no hiding. So I've actually been working on some stuff on my computer of ideas that I need to go on and submit to block some of this liquid off, because if we don't, it will get dumped and get utilized.
Get in the rotation?
Yep.
Now, with kind of like an old-fashioned system like that, do barrels ever get stolen or anything like that? Does that ever happen?
Not so much stolen, but they will get lost.
Someone might come out with low recovery.
I mean, it won't get. I mean, on the ledger, if something, they take out 20 barrels and there was 23 barrels, those 3 might get kind of, and all of a sudden they go, what about these 3 barrels that have been here for umpteen years? Almost like that one barrel, that sample you had, it was, 154 proof?
proof, yeah.
So, this is a...
People think that, sometimes that is a marketing story.
Yeah, that's going to go there. It's
I
like-
knew where you were going to go. I've
Yeah.
been around you enough. Sometimes this, these stories about lost barrels and shit. When you got 73 warehouses that have up to 50,000 barrels in each, there's a chance that a few might kind of fall in the crack. It's not because we want it to. It just happens if you don't harvest the entire rick. And they put some more barrels in that empty spot, because warehouse spots are like gold now.
Oh yeah, they are.
I mean, we're 90% full?
Right at it, right, about 89.
So you think about it, 90% of your capacity is there. You've got barrels to put away. You're looking for a hole. Oh, there's a rick. Put them in there. Well, you don't realize there's 3 barrels at the back that have been there for 5, 6 years, say. Then all of a sudden, when you harvest it, you think, God damn, what about these 3? Where'd they come from? You find these secret barrels that are so sweet and taste so great. It does happen. It really does. I mean, the guys that work in the warehouse, they know where the good liquor is.
That's right.
You can bet your ass they're drinking the best shit in the warehouse. And you'll never taste it in public. I mean, it's just nature of the beast. You wonder why guys want to work in the warehouse. When I first went to work at Beam 34 years ago, all the old timers wore bib overalls. And they carried what they called a mule, which I didn't know. I was greener than a gourd. It was a plastic tube about this long. And all them old men, I wondered, why would they work out here in these warehouses in the hot summer and the cold-ass winters when it's terrible? But they could get in there and they find them honey barrels or sweet barrels or the best barrel, whatever you want to call it. They take our pocket knife, all of them carried pocket, pop out that bung, drop in that tube, and just suck out a drink. And you could walk in a warehouse. Dad showed me years ago how you could find the honey barrel. Now, them barrels aging, they get mold and rust on them. Well, most of them old boys had big fat bellies, kind of like me. They would lean over that barrel to get a drink. When you lean over it, you knock off the rust and the mold. And you can look down through that whole rick of barrels, and there's rusty, moldy. And all of a sudden, there's one that's nice and clean. And Dad said, that's the honey barrel. What are you talking about? And boys been drinking out of it. Look at it. And I mean, you're laughing, but it's a fact. I mean, that was the nature of the beast.
That's science,
30
actually.
years ago. Them boys, if you're in there working with them aging barrels, are you going to drink something that's a year old, or are you going to drink something that's 7 or 8 years old? And those guys, when I probably shouldn't say this, tell this story. But
Yeah, this is completely off the record.
Well, you know, when my training, they would just send me to the warehouse or wherever they needed somebody. My godfather and uncle, my mom's brother, was the warehouse superintendent, Jimmy Wickham. And when I first went up there, he said, here's what you got to do. When you take the crew, we drive our crews to the warehouse and tell them what they got to get out. He said, don't follow them in the warehouse. So what? He threw me the sports page to the Courier Journal. Read the sports page before you go up in the warehouse. I said, why? He said, if you follow them into the warehouse and they can't go get a drink, they will not get any work done this morning. Leave them alone. Yes, sir. And sure enough, them old guys, if you didn't let them get up in there and get them a little taste, they start shaking a little bit. I mean, there was reasons. They didn't steal whiskey. They drank it. It wasn't like they were filling up their thermos bottles. They carried it out in their bellies. They didn't carry it out they were drinking that shit all day long, and they worked like dogs.
It's quality control.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just making sure the barrels are, no doubt they would tell Booker or whoever, like, the whiskey's off today. We need to.
Nah, that was just a perk of being in the warehouse. The thing that would piss my father off more than anything in the world was we'd walk through when I was a kid. I was a little dude. We'd go down to the distillery on the weekends. Nobody's there on Sundays. We'd be walking through, and Dad would look around, just checking temperatures of fermenters, and he'd see a bottle, snuggled by somewhere where somebody had been drinking on the job. The thing that would piss him off the most was if it was a competitor's brand.
Oh.
He said, God damn, they're biting the hand that feeds them. Why in the hell ain't they drinking Beam? They're drinking Very Old Barton or Yellowstone or whatever, J.W. Dant, whatever. I didn't know. I was just a little kid. I said, I didn't understand what he was talking about. But it's kind of funny. You're working at a distillery and you're buying somebody else's whiskey and bringing it to work to drink at work. That's kind of.
But that's the mantra of the business: support one another.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, they're just trying
I'm sure
to help.
Booker would look at you kind of funny, Fred, and say, you are full of shit.
Yeah.
I'll go and say it for him because he's looking down and I call him out, Fred. Call him
He
out.
raised his eyebrow at you,
Right.
too.
And say, there was enough liquor around there. I mean, you got thousands of barrels and whiskey coming off the still all day and all night, but why would you buy somebody else's stuff?
I never had the privilege of meeting Booker. He passed away in 2004 when I was in Iraq, so I never, and that was before I got in the business. But you know, when I tasted Little Book, everybody please grab your Little Book. When I tasted Little Book, my first thought was, not only is Dad proud, Grandpa's proud.
Oh, no doubt.
This is good whiskey.
He did good. I mean, I'm proud of him. I mean, I'll let him tell the story about what Little Book is. I mean, and like Chuck Cowdery's a great friend, and we've had a few issues that me and him have worked out. Chuck's he reviews a lot of whiskeys, and when he said that, you know, probably the biggest thing to come out of bourbon country is not a bourbon, I accused him of sending him a country ham for Christmas. I still think he sent him something. I never seen Chuck be that complimentary of anybody, but
No?
It is.
And most of the professional reviewers were really complimentary of this.
Oh, yeah. But Chuck saying that about Fred, I give him shit because I think he greased him up with something.
You doing that?
Now, if that's true, you gotta divulge it right here.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Did you grease up Chuck Cowdery?
You say that, but if I gave it to Chuck, I'd have to give some to Fred, Tony.
What? Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of guys I'd have to give some
No,
hand
I would
to.
never.
Fred wants the 13-year-old corn.
That's true.
All I want is that
All these
the
whiskey writers, they want something. You know, they want something back.
You get in my notebook, you'll find a page, whiskey writers, and what I owe each one of them.
All I
just
wanted
kidding,
was wanted this deconstructed. I wanted to taste the various samples by themselves, see how you came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
So just tell us what's in this.
So what's in Little Book is, as Fred hinted to earlier, a 13-year-old corn whiskey. And that was kind of where I started. At Beam, we use corn, rye, and malted barley in our Jim Beam mash bill. And I just had this thought. I don't even remember where I first thought it, but instead of using the grains, what if you used corn whiskey, rye whiskey, and malt whiskey and blended them together to that mash bill? And if they were 4 years old, you know, how close would it taste to Jim Beam or even bourbon? You know, I just kind of wondered that. And so that's what kind of sparked my thought in it. And I had actually done that as an experiment when I was in our innovation center. Wasn't very good. Dad can attest to that. It wasn't very good at all. But I kind of just let that idea go, and we sit in these ideation meetings, which drive me and him both crazy. But we were sitting in one day, and that thought come back up in my head, and I said, you know, I worked on this at 4 years old. I'd like to go back to this and just work on blending a whiskey with these components and not have, you know, just the 4-year statement. And so I don't know if they were just telling me that to shut me up and give me something to do because they knew how terrible that was. They probably thought I'd still be working on this blend today. But they said, go for it. And that's kind of how Little Book was born. And so what it is, like I said, a 13-year-old corn whiskey, a 6-year-old high rye whiskey, and also a 6-year-old 100% distiller's malted barley whiskey. And then finished off with 4-year uncut Jim Beam. So Little Book is uncut, unfiltered, just like Booker's. And that's kind of where I got, obviously, I got the nickname from Dad said when I was this big. I don't know that I was ever that small, but
When you were...
he called me Little Book from the time I was born, basically.
Right. I was going to say,
It's always
first time
kinda
he held
fitting.
you were Little Book.
Kind of fitting that I named it after him. And then, you know, listening to him talk about why he created Booker's the way he created Booker's, and that he wanted to deliver Booker's the way whiskey used to be and the way it was meant to be in his eyes. And what he meant by that was you used to bring your bottle or quart or jar or jug or, hell, plastic, whatever, to the distillery and would fill it up with your whiskey and take it home. And that was barrel strength. You know, we never cut it. We didn't have bottles of Jim Beam White Label. It was just Jim Beam whiskey that was unaged. And he liked that because it let the consumer drink it at full strength, or if you wanted to add some water or ice or however. And, you know, and then listening to Dad, I know he probably didn't think I listened to him too much when I was a teenager and going into college, but he always told everyone to drink Jim Beam any damn way you want to. If you want to add Coke, great. Ice, want to make a cocktail. So I thought, you know, when I started blending on this, it all kind of evolved and was great. I didn't really have a set proof I was working on. I just wanted to do some blending. And so it turned out that by releasing it at barrel strength, it kind of is like the essence of what Dad says. Drink it any damn way you want. If you want to drink it like we're drinking it here, neat, that's great. I'm sure you've got glasses of water. You want to pour some water in it. It really changes the liquid. If you want to add a couple cubes of ice, or I've had quite a few cocktails as I've been out kind of promoting Little Book that are pretty damn good. So it's literally the essence of drink it any damn way you want. You know, I created it to share with friends and for you guys to share with friends and consumers to share. That's what it's about. So it is, and how about from that, just cheers. How about that? Cheers.
I do encourage people to add water. The proof is up there.
It's 128.4, I believe, 128.2. Yeah, that's it.
But you don't necessarily taste that proof.
Right. That's what's funny is, you know, anything I work on, I let Dad taste. My wife, I let her taste anything I work on. She's my biggest fan and critic, so I like to let her taste it as well. And I got a buddy who pretty educated on bourbon. I gave him a bottle of it. He stopped by the house. I said, you know, next time you have a drink, you know, try this. I want your opinion on it. And he called me about an hour and a half later, and he goes, it's kind of hot. I said, hot? I said, it's 128 proof, Hunter. Oh, well, that changes the game. I thought it was 85. I was like, I guess he was reading on the label. I had 85 on there somewhere, and he thought that was the proof, and he goes, that's pretty smooth for 128. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it changes it a little bit when you know the proof.
Yeah, exactly,
That's for
exactly.
Sure. We've kind of come to the end of my questions. I do have one last question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. Fred, you've seen Freddie come into his own. What's one piece of advice you have for him going into the future?
Oh, to keep doing what he's doing and be himself. I mean, don't start thinking that keep making products that you're proud to give to your friends and family. And, listen to the consumer. That's 99% of it, and be straight up. That's what Booker told me. Be yourself, and don't let people. I say people like marketing and folks in our corporate headquarters. They try to tell you what you should say, what you shouldn't say.
It's funny, to add on that. They give us scripts for everything. Not tonight, but typically, if we're talking. It's a predetermined talk. We get these scripts, and I'm about 99% sure he's probably never looked at them, but I definitely know that when it's both of us together, he usually looks at me and is like, fuck it, let's just wing it. And that's what we do, because you start reading through it and you're like, my God, I would never say half this shit.
Well, they hand us scripts Monday.
Well, yeah, that's the best one. Yeah.
For our 15 millionth barrel fill. When we get to the event, it's a windy day. There's no podium, and it's a handheld microphone. I've got multiple pages. He's got multiple pages. What are you going to do with it?
Hold it for him to read, and he's going to hold mine, and we're looking.
So I looked at Freddie right before he walked on stage. I said, fuck it, wing it. We put our scripts on there and put it down with a bottle of White Dog that we finished filling the barrel up with. I just got up there and talked. And everybody that we talked to said, well, y'all did great. Well, all we can do is get up and know what you're talking about, state the facts, and let it go. It's not.
Well, I think there's a little bit of
science.
I think there's a little bit of concern with liability with you, with the amount that you cuss. Even tonight.
Really, Fred?
The shit counter was pretty high. You
always call me potty mouth, so if I don't cuss, you all say, "Oh, what happened?"
Yeah,
you didn't say one cuss
if
word.
He's not cussing.
That is true. I do say that, but
he gives me so much
kid.
shit for cussing. Then when I don't, why didn't you?
I kid, but no.
He's
there's no script that could ever match what you do.
I'm not good with scripts at all, because I know what I'm going to say.
We did not give you a script tonight. That's
Booker
for sure.
taught me to be yourself, and when they hand you this stuff, you start reading it, and it doesn't sound anything like what I would say. And I looked at Freddie's, and it was so many typos. If he read that, people would think that he was mentally challenged. I said, God damn, that didn't make any sense at all. I said, the speechwriter needs to at least read the speech one time. And
You guys. So
they know we're not going to look at it.
That's the thing. They
So it
know,
ain't no big deal.
It was funny when I first started kind of talking, and I think I'd actually done a video for some internal promotional stuff, and my wife was there with me, and so they handed me a script, and it was about as thick as what me and him were trying to read together. On the first one, I'm like, this is crazy. And she was like, do you know your script? And I was like, I never really looked at it. And she was just like, I could just see her nervousness just growing. And I got up there and I talked in front of a camera for about 30 minutes, just answering questions and rambling. And I got off and I was like, how'd I do? And she goes, did pretty good. I thought you didn't look at the script. And I was like, I didn't. It's just once like what he said, if you know what you're talking about, these products are my legacy, my family. I know about our products and I know about my family history. So getting up and talking about it it's just like,
that was part of the deal Monday. Tell me what Jacob Beam did. Tell me what Jim Beam did. Tell me what my dad did. I said, really? You're going to rewrite me telling what Jacob Beam did over Washington County? What Jim Beam did after Prohibition in Claremont? And Freddie, all he had was talking about the employees, which he worked with them. We had 15 of our oldest union employees. And those 15 guys, there was no women, right? It was all guys?
It was all guys, yeah, it was all guys.
Because, back, they had their average years of tenure at Beam were 33 years. The oldest one was 495 years, yep. Those 15 guys. He's worked with them, I worked with them. So all you got to do is recognize them. It's not like you got to have somebody tell you it was XX on the script. Like they didn't know how many years they'd been there or how many it was or anything about it. I was like, God, throw that script away. But anyway.
Well, I have a feeling that speechwriter's probably gone now.
And he's still around. They ain't gonna let him go. They ain't gonna let him go. He's been around too long.
I had no idea I'd be tapping into a vein here.
Oh, we don't do scripts very well.
This is just a prompt for us, so they don't hand us scripts anymore. This is a
your opportunity.
Yeah, this is our opportunity to talk about how we don't need
It's so
scripts.
bad. Our national sales meeting every year in Las Vegas, they got teleprompters and all that stuff, and you get up on stage from 1,000 people. Everybody's got a script, and when I get up there, it just says Fred speaks. I swear to God, that's all. And then when our CEO gets up there, it says Matt speaks. I think we're the only two people that go with it. And when Freddie did it last year, he didn't, They
had a picture. That was what was funny. When I got up there, he got up there and introduced me. And I got up there and everybody was cheering. It was my first time at our sales meeting. And so I'm kind of walking around talking. It was a square stage, so I was talking to
people all around you.
You're
in the...
As I walk around, on the teleprompter, there's pictures of me and him right there. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Good thing I know what I'm talking about, or I'd be screwed. Well, there's a picture of me and Dad sitting at the distillery.
Yeah. But that's just, they've figured it out. The scripts don't work well for Fred.
All right, well, we do have a couple minutes for questions. I do not recommend asking about speeches. Fred over here.
Yeah. Two questions real quick. Does Bobby still do anything with you guys? And the second question is, the funniest thing, Fred, you and Bocephus. Okay. Question number one. Does Bobby still do anything with you guys? And question number two. The funniest thing, Fred, you and Bocephus ever did together?
I'll answer the first one while you think about that. We don't officially do anything with Kid Rock anymore. But I think we got a hunting trip maybe coming up soon, possibly. And we hang out. Every time he plays in Louisville, we hang out. So nothing officially, but he's definitely still part of the family.
He still drinks Jim Beam on stage every night. And when he got down in Louisville, Bob wants to see you guys. So, okay, we went backstage and hung out for a little bit, and it was kind of crazy. But nothing terrible. The funniest thing me and Hank did, it was in Cookeville, Tennessee. He was opening it up for Charlie Daniels. And Hank was not drunk. He was in good shape. He was playing a hell of a show, and he ran over in time. And they turned the house lights on at this big arena at, what is it? I can't remember what college campus down in Cookville. I think it's Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
They turned on the house lights like this, and he kept on playing. He said, "You paid your money, I came here to play." I was standing on the side of the stage, and looked over at me and said, "I think we're going to take us to the parking lot, Fred." I said, "Why in the hell did you pick me?" And finally, they cut the sound off. I mean, you don't do that to Hank. He did go to the Holiday Inn in Cookville, Tennessee, and we pretty much got his instruments, and they played in the parking lot at the Holiday Inn in Cookville, Tennessee, years ago. That was the funniest thing I ever saw. I said, damn, he really, I mean, it was kind of crazy, though. Hank's a hell of a dude. I mean, it's kind of funny watching over the years. You know, Dad and Hank were big buddies. Me and Kid Rock have become pretty good friends in Montgomery Gentry. And one time Bobby said, "I wonder who Freddie's going to pull into the music industry." I said, "I don't know. He's still out there. Ain't no telling." He hadn't showed his hand yet, so who knows?
So it looks like we have a question right over here.
I have a couple of questions. There's a pretty little girl now that does a little Jim Beam Black commercial on TV. I was curious what y'all thought about her. And secondly, have y'all ever done a survey of all the employees of Jim Beam and figured out what the best bourbon is?
The first question, Mila, she's been a great partner. She came to Kentucky and wanted to learn about bourbon. She does drink the stuff. It surprised me. She was nervous to work with me because she cussed too much, she said. And my wife assured her, "You're good." And she said, "No, you don't understand. This is before we ever met." She said, "I say fuck a lot." And my wife still told her, "You're still good." So Sandy told me this before we ever met, because they wanted our first meeting to be on camera. So after my wife told me this, after we did our first little intro and I welcomed her to the Beam family and welcome to Kentucky and all this, and he said, "Cut." Perfect. I got in here and I said, "Fuck it." She said, "We're going to get along just fine, big boy." And me and Mila have been partners ever since. It's been, she's great. I mean, she really does drink the stuff. Most times you get people like that, you give them write them a check. They talk about Jim Beam or talk about whatever, but they don't drink it. But she really does enjoy the stuff.
And you guys have a Mila Kunis bourbon coming out in the next...
All right, it's coming. She's got a barrel. Her barrel you saw in the commercial. Mila and myself are going to work together to finish that barrel with some different wood. She wanted me to be involved with her because she said, "Fred's the expert. I want to be with him." So,
What kind of wood are you finishing it in?
Don't know. We're going to look at several things with our partners from Independence Day, and I'm going to take some stuff to California, and me and her, and
Nice.
I'm sure her husband. At the time, it was her boyfriend. She kept saying, "AK, AK, AK." And I said, "Who the hell's AK?" She said, "Don't you know my boyfriend?" I said, "Mila, I just met you. How would I know your boyfriend?" I didn't know Ashton Kutcher was AK. You know, and when I met him, he's a hell of a nice dude. He loves whiskey. And he was in the back of the room at one event, and I saw him back there in a baseball cap pulled down. I said, "Mila, is there somebody back there I need to go talk to?" "Oh, yeah, you need to go talk to AK." So I went back there, and me and him became buddies instantaneously. Because he loves whiskey. I mean, anybody that loves whiskey, I can get along with him real quick. He asked me some real inquisitive questions. I mean, they're really into drinking whiskey.
That's
What's
good.
funny about that, too, is when Mila came to Kentucky, my daughter was probably 5. I don't know how old she was, 4 or 5, maybe 6. And she had no idea who Mila was. But we were having dinner in the backyard, kind of like we always do when we have groups over. Bradley was hanging out with me and my wife and Grandma and Dad, and Mila were filming. And after they got done, they come out, and she recognized her from a Disney movie. I guess she's in Maleficent, I think it is. She plays in Maleficent. She ran right up over to her, and Mila picked her up, and they were like best friends the rest of the night. They just hung out together. So my wife was like, she she can hang around at Braley. I mean, that was back when Braley didn't really even. She was halfway scared of him still.
All right, yeah.
Me, because she'd hear me
Very
and him getting
standoffish.
loud.
She went right straight to Mila. Boom. It was like.
It was really weird. So Mila kind of fit in the family right from the start.
It's awesome.
And for your second question, that's a very good question, but you know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning is I'm going to send an email to our plant manager and have that question sent out to all of our employees because I don't think we've ever really talked about that. So
Never have asked them what the favorite one is. We got to keep the guys out of the warehouse out of that survey.
yeah,
They'll say barrel strength, Jim Beam at 8, 9 years old or something, you know. But
that's a good question though. I'll have to
put that
follow
next
up.
engagement
Yeah,
survey.
we need to put that in our engagement survey. We'll have to follow up on
we
that.
do that stuff. It's kind of crazy. We do these engagement surveys and ask them all these questions. It's kind of crazy. We have a lot of fun with it though. Our employees, they'll tell me and Freddie what's on their minds real quick. Might not tell the bosses, but they'll tell us. Stop you in the grocery. God damn, our boss sucks. He's a son of a bitch. Why don't you run that son of a bitch? No. Time out.
I got a question back here. So there's, a lot of talk of Freddie having Little Book come out. We got Freddie's Rye coming out. So we can see that.
Whoa. That's not a name.
Rumored. Let the
Hold on now.
the blogs take
did
over
say
from
Freddie's
here.
Rye.
He said Freddie's Rye. He said it could be Freddie's Rye.
Could be, because Booker's not around, you know. You can't hardly. But he's Frederick Booker, no, the fourth, so he could call it Booker's if he wanted to.
Well, I guess, Fred, how are you going to cement your legacy here? What are you going to have a new bourbon that's going to be christened after you? What's the idea behind there?
Well, we'll see. I mean, we laid some stuff down in November. We did an experimental deal. We'll see.
Oh, experimental deal. Oh, well, what was the experiment?
We did some things differently than what we normally do.
Oh,
Is that what you call an experiment?
Yeah.
like what? Like what?
Well,
Like, we put it in a barrel and we made some white whiskey that Freddie and his team at the distillery did that I asked them to do, the way that I asked them, and they did it that way, and we'll see. I mean, it might be something that gets blended off in Kessler's blend.
Oh, don't say that.
It might.
you never know.
I mean,
It's only
it's only
Your
what,
legacy
5
is-
months,
your
6
legacy's
months,
far
6
better
months
than
old,
Kessler's.
5 months
Well,
old.
but I mean, what we tried to make, it's kind of, the name of the project is Fred's Legacy,
Okay.
but it might not be what I want to be my legacy.
And the thing
You know,
is,
if it turns out like shit,
the Fred's Legacy project is open-ended too. That was just one kind of, well, I guess that was one experiment along Fred's Legacy project. So,
Well, you
Could
did
it?
have you were on a label, kind of like a Booker's label, like or Fred's,
Fred No Select.
the Fred No Select.
That-
Some time
Fred,
ago.
that's one that was all because of money. When you're in Japan, and a guy says he'll give 4 times the price of a bottle of Booker's to have his own label, and the salesman kicks you under the table, you don't say no. 4 times now, that's pretty nice price increase.
Because he wanted to.
He wanted to have his own batch of Booker's, but we did cut it a little bit, and we called it Fred No Select instead of Booker's, because it wasn't truly Booker's. So it was, one of them deals. It was all about the money. It wasn't about only happened one time. You're exactly right. It's all about profit.
Wow.
Sales guys want to sell, and if I can help them, I do. So 4 times though, that was pretty mad. I was going no. After I got kicked the 3rd time, I said, well, we'll talk about it. And he got it through our corporate headquarters, and they said, let's do it. So I said, fuck, I don't care. But we did cut it.
Those bottles pop up on the secondary market every now and then.
Really?
Yeah, they do
How
pretty
much?
well. I think I've seen them for 200.
Really? Damn.
Yeah. I'll have to.
Wish I had some of that. I might like to. That's why I see this stuff pop up and they tell me what stuff brings. It's
We
crazy.
have one more question. Right over. Do we have time for any more questions? One more after this? Okay, right here. The gentleman with the microphone.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Are there stories being passed around in the family about during the Prohibition years and the Great Depression?
During Prohibition, Jim Beam sold the business. Our distillery used to actually be up in Bardstown. And he knew there was going to be some illegal activity go on. He didn't want to go to jail, so he sold the distillery. And actually, back in the old days, all your distilleries had farms attached to them that when we distill, we have a byproduct called stillage or slop that today we actually dry and sell to the feed mills. Back in the old days, they had a feed lot hooked to your distillery, and you would get rid of the excess slop with feeding cows or pigs or whatever. Jim Beam sold the farm and threw in the distillery just to get away from it. And he didn't do anything because he didn't want to go to jail. And that was kind of our deal during Prohibition.
But, they bought a quarry plant, and
Right.
which is the...
He tried his hand at citrus farming in Florida. He got skinned pretty good at that. That's what Aunt Mimi, his daughter, who I lived with, she never had any kids. When she got up in age, needed somebody to stay with her, so I moved in with Aunt Mimi next door. And she talked about those days that, Jim Beam was in Kentucky, the citrus farm was in Florida. He visited every now and then. They skinned him pretty good, pretty clean. He came home, tried his hand at coal mining in eastern Kentucky. They don't take the flatlanders going up in eastern Kentucky and digging coal too much. They skinned him pretty good too. So he actually landed on the limestone rock quarry in Bullitt County. Sunbeam Quarry is how he fed the family during Prohibition. And then when Prohibition was repealed, he opened up that Murphy Barber distillery that was on the property that he used for digging limestone rock. And that's how we got back into business. As far as Depression, Booker was born, December 7th, 29. They always called him Hard Times. They got through it, but it wasn't real good. That was his nickname.
I wanted to ask, you said something about employees in the know partaking of the good barrels of bourbon. I was going to ask simply what of the quote-unquote angel's share do you think is actually the employees enjoying the products they're putting out there?
Great question.
I would say today it's a lot less than it was 30 years ago.
Barrel quality got better.
Barrel quality got better. Now really, if you look at the employees today, and Freddie can, if I'm speaking out of school, you tell me, I don't think the guys today drink like they used to with all the, drinking and driving stuff. I don't think they drink near the quantity. I mean, those guys, back when I first went to work there, they drank massive quantities of whiskey. I mean, it was amazing. Some of the guys, and I can remember them, a lot of them were friends of my father's that we hunted and fished with when I was a kid. And I'd watch Bill Roby, which Freddie grew up,
Hogwash.
He remembered Hogwash was his nickname. He could take a pint of whiskey and 100 proof bottled in bond old tub and knock it halfway down in one drink and never grimace he worked in a warehouse. He worked there his entire career. I know why he did. He loved drinking whiskey. Those guys, that was just part of it. Guys that started working in the 50s, they drank a lot.
I think a lot of it too is today, when we pull barrels, we're pulling barrels literally from 7 o'clock to the time they walk out the door. And a lot of times, if you fuck off or mess around, that causes you to work overtime. And most people are trying to get home to their families. So I think a lot of it has changed, just the culture change and the demand for bourbon has really changed too.
They're working them harder today than they did back in the day. Back years ago, those guys got it done, but the demand wasn't there like it is now. Our boys, they worked their asses off moving them barrels every day.
We got 1,000 barrel at Claremont. In the warehouse, they've got 1,000 barrel club, which is like an extremely high mark to hit for dumping of barrels or filling of barrels in a day. And if you look on the list, we still keep the old ones on there, but if you look, there's more in the last 5 years than over the course of the club, which started back in the 80s. So it's just all about, you know, how much whiskey we're moving. We're moving a lot of whiskey around on a daily basis. Goes back to that 90% capacity deal too. You know, if you're at 90% capacity, you're trying to get as much whiskey out of them warehouses as you can, because if you slow down on dumping barrels, I'm going to be calling the warehouse saying, or they're going to be calling in there telling me to slow down, and I'm going to say, what the hell is going on? Why do you want us to slow these stills down?
And then the boys got to work on Saturdays. They don't like working on Saturdays.
No one likes working.
They like working
Saturdays.
Monday to Friday. You know, they'll work a little overtime. You know, we usually quit at 3:30, 4 o'clock. But when you start talking about coming in on Saturday morning, it pisses them off.
So we have come to the close of the Legend Series, or for this one. But I want to end the night with a toast to the nose, to Fred and Freddie.
I'm out of whiskey.
Grab what you have left.
I got Beth's cocktail. That's what. Oh.
I know that you all are out there selling the Beam name, but none of it ever comes off as marketing or not you. And that's what I love about you two personally. And so please, don't ever lose that. Don't ever lose that genuine, beautiful discussion of who you are. Cheers.
Thanks, Fred.
Cheers, Fred.
Cheers.